Welcome back to the Why Aren't You Famous podcast with Ellen Cherry and Andrew Grimm. I almost said, why aren't you serious? So there you have it. That's a great start to this podcast.
If we could just get serious about it.
Well, if you could just get serious about it. I mean, you're all over the place today.
I am. I'm just feeling I'm feeling a little bit mentally better. And so I'm starting to enjoy the ridiculousness of this world.
Oh, it's a wild ride.
It's ridiculous.
It is. It's becoming increasingly kind of like I guess like condensed, or there's no room to breathe or do anything fun or
what is it called?
Stuff.
The ridiculousness is becoming supercharged, concentrated. The ridiculousness gets delivered in a concentrated dose every single morning.
Flavor blasted with ridiculousness.
We're flavor blast every day. Yes.
Yeah. Every day it's like, oh my God. You know, you wake up and you're like, what flavor blast of Cheeto are we gonna get? You know.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why we're talking about the topic we're talking about today,
right.
Which is that you and I consume this ridiculous capsule every morning through digital sources, the internet, through our devices that are run by bits and bytes.
Yeah.
And so today's topic is digital versus analog.
Yeah.
And so where do you want to start?
Well, I don't know. I had a lot of fun writing my essay.
Good.
I wrote it it was a very quick writing session where it just kind of came out there, and I did a little bit of editing. But what I felt strongly about at the very beginning of the whole analog digital thing, because we're musicians, there's this whole idea of like, oh, well, we're all going to be analog because we're, nerds. But I love digital stuff. I love digital recording. I mean, I'm able to fix my mistakes and edit this and edit that. And I think it's really great.
You're like, I love the Instagram filter of...
Man, I sharpen. My tilt shift is out of control. Let me tell you what. But I like having control. It does give you a lot of control when you're working digitally. But there is also that other part where I remember analog, so I have an analog brain. And I had an analog youth, which there's a good name for a band, Analog Youth. I'm not some digital creep. There's another. But like,
trademark. Analog Youth trademark.
That's right. Look for our new record coming out at
Digital
the end of this
creep.
Podcast. Anyhow, whatever. I had a lot of fun writing it. It made me think about some things differently than I normally think about them.
That's interesting because I felt this was one of my most tortured essays. I wrote like 3 different essays, and then finally this one, when I was forced by deadline to finish it, I was just
forced by deadline. I saw those guys in 2007. They opened up for Armed Boner.
What? Don't bring boners into the conversation this early.
Well, I thought that was funny.
Also, just so you know, the mic can totally pick up your shoe tapping. It sounds like someone is knocking at the door.
Someone's trying to get out of the yeah, someone's trying to get out of the closet.
The digital creep is trying to get out of the closet.
I'm not going to edit that. I'm just going to let it go.
No, go for it.
Because I am the one who mixes the podcast, so it's at my whim and mercy. Can I do those things? So, but yeah. So I guess we'll jump right into this because your essay is 20 minutes long or something.
2,700 minutes long.
2,700 minutes. Okay. Well.
Wait, am I first this time?
It's up to you. We haven't even picked it yet.
Oh.
So
no, I want to listen to yours first.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. We're going to listen to my essay first. Analog and digital. Binaries and enemies, old and new, although they seem to be antithetical of each other, they share a certain continuity and mutual purpose. Based on the whims of marketing, both analog and digital's brand have flip-flopped in connotation over the years. What is old is new, and what is new is an attempt to make some money off of someone else's sense of nostalgia. The stereophonic sounds on vinyl, the convenience of cassettes, the crisp sound and skipping convenience of compact discs, the immediacy of a download and file share, the limited edition lo-fi super cool of a cassette, the collector's edition of vinyl with download card. Analog comes from Latin meaning proportionate. Proportionate being an accurate approximation of actuality, while the word digital is defined as meaning discrete decoded digits reconstituted by protocol. Analog, simple reproduction. Digital, complex reconstitution. In pre-digital days, analog was the cool and only thing kids had for listening to music. And in time, these records became artifacts, proof that something had happened, a document to be reviewed and a physical ritual practiced carefully, gently pulling the record from its sleeve, centering the album on a simple device, dropping a needle into a groove, listening to the soundtrack in a deliberate sequence. All the while looking at the images that accompanied the music on its sleeve. The long-form ritual has been displaced over time for the convenience and antiseptic digital information coldly decoded and downloaded into our phones and computers. Initially, one of the many improvements with digital recording and playback was to eliminate tape hiss or the sound of a room. Finally, a listener can hear the music. But in eliminating hiss and room noise, the very life of the voice of music, the air to be pushed to generate sound waves is suppressed, as well as the soul of the song. The humanity being presented is reduced. The emotion expressed becomes a diluted code, a blip rather than a beat. As we have embraced the digital age, we have sacrificed the analog warmth and permanence for convenience and accessibility. Compact discs were loud and easier to skip through the songs you didn't like. No longer is time needed to get through a song you didn't dig so much the first time. The song that might need a little more time to sit in your ears and grow on you. Now, you don't even have to buy that song. You can download individual tracks, the ones you like. It is even easier to dismiss songs than to have to consider them. And even more now, there are genius algorithms that track your listening and make suggestions for you, so you no longer need to explore, and songs like the ones you dismissed won't even bubble up into your periphery. What's worse is that none of these songs reside anywhere but in a digital cyber cloud that you will never see. And the ritual of analog is reduced to a swipe on your screen to play track 5 by unknown artist. And as you listen to your jam on a bullshit pair of dollar store earbuds, you're constantly being interrupted by news alerts, texts, and a couple of tweets. Jeff Tweedy from Uncle Tupelo and Wilco said it best when singing about listening to records. There's no call waiting in my headphones. I cannot help but see this same relationship applying to fame and success. In the past, it feels like folks spent so much time with their records, and that there was a real sense of connection between the listener and those artists. People were really willing to spend a lot of time with the records and the songs, and because in the analog days that's what you had, it became an enduring relationship that colored and shaped the living experience. As opposed to now, where it seems that it is no longer a soundtrack but incidental music tacked on to the background of a scene, inherently disposable or replaceable. In no means do I believe that we are living in a time where all is forgotten. This is a generational argument. And that argument unfolds or implodes with the idea that at some point, the older generation can talk about buying their first record as a solemn and sacred moment in their lives. But I sincerely doubt anyone in the younger generation shares that experience while downloading Ariana Grande's new single. But, as I once heard on a record I listened to the other day, everything dies, baby, that's a fact. And maybe everything that dies someday comes back. What is old is new again. And maybe just maybe, those members of the younger generation won't remember downloading Grande's new single, but they may remember buying her limited edition 12-inch vinyl version of it, even if they don't have the means to listen to it.
Wow.
Take that.
There is a lot in there. It's very full.
It is. It is.
I want to start with the feeling at the beginning of you talking about the sensuous experience of the consumption of music that I feel like that I had, even buying a CD and listening to it all the way through in the sequential order of it. And then previous to that, and also after that, when I started as an adult buying records and listening to music the way I had as a child because of my parents' record collection, like looking at the pictures and being completely pulled into that world in this sensuous way. And that, somebody buying a record now because of nostalgia, but not even having the memory of the experience of putting the record on the record player and the needle and being in that room and listening environment without interruption, without digital interruption.
Right.
Not even just the nexus of the recording, having that sensuous feeling of the room. And then my mind, like while you were talking during your essay, I started thinking about, it sparked in me thinking about the analog experience just as performance before the age of recording anything, photography,
Right.
wax cylinders, any type of recording device that, yes, that was also we had this brief period of time where there was an actual physical object that represented a performance.
Right.
It's very brief because, I mean, recording devices, late 19th century, early 20th century, and then the 20th century, and having a physical object that you could hold on to that represented and was a snapshot of that period of time. And that sensuous experience in the scope of human experience of music is very tiny. And now we are back to this ephemeral, untouchable thing with digital recording, that you don't hold the product, you don't hold the artifact. Right.
And in most cases, most people, I don't know if most people, I don't want to speak in vague generalizations, but, the idea that a lot of the stuff we haven't paid for, they people listen to it on YouTube, or they might buy into Spotify, which is nice, but Spotify doesn't pay the artist anything really.
That's a personal thing to us too, because think of the psychic, and I'm not trying to be like a woe is me thing, because I feel very lucky that I have been able to hustle a living as an artist and musician for 20 years. It's that's part of the psychic pressure of this experience, is that when you are a content creator and that the content you create is valued by such a small portion of, valued monetarily by such a small portion of the purchasing audience, and that the larger audience is actually saying something that is, they recognize as temporary, a $5 coffee goes through their body, that is more valuable to them on a daily basis than the thing that they say inspires them to work out or have sex or be in love or work on their book or get to work.
Let's think about the three things you just to work out, have sex,
enjoy life, feel joy, think. Okay, I wasn't getting to the point that like the way that that music inspires in me, also just the beauty of having somebody paint a picture in front of you with word and melody and lyric. That to me is a given. But I'm also thinking about the way that people have described the way that they use music, and the way in your essay that you described that because of its disposable nature now, it has been put on the wall as wallpaper fully. Yeah. Like even really good music becomes music that you are listening to in a restaurant while you're trying to have a conversation. There's lyrical music happening because people do not give a shit about it. They're just oh, who cares?
Yeah, whatever.
You can talk over this too.
Yeah. It's like that oatmeal cartoon about the exposure type of idea, He tries to buy a hot dog. He's like, can you take this exposure? Fuck no. Well, and it's so, without kind of complaining about it, but where we are as a culture and where we as a society, what we value and what actually has valuation is, in terms of music, it's like, oh my goodness, it doesn't seem like a large portion of folks think there's any skill into what you're doing. And even if they do think that there's skill, it's like, well, yeah, but I mean, I'm not going to give you any money for it. And it's this weird kind of, I guess, I'm not really like, I didn't think about this before I started saying it.
That's okay. That's the purpose of this podcast.
But it's this, right. Just check back in with me later. I'll edit this out. No, it's that idea that like we're in this weird kind of trap, this weird, strange maze where, we can smell the cheese, but we can't get there. And the people who can help us, guide us through it are just kind of like, yeah, but it's not really worth my money. But my life has, everyone's life has been enriched by music in some way or other. I don't get it, but I also don't care a whole lot. I mean, like, fine, I'll show you. I'll keep making records that you'll listen to for free.
Yeah, there's a defiance in there that is it's driven by the creative impulse that you have that the inside needs to get out.
Right.
And that's a gift that you are giving to yourself. That's you're leaving space in your own heart for that because you know of the necessity for yourself. And then the purpose of actually telling other people about it, because you could just keep all of your recordings in your computer or in your head,
right?
Your songs in your head and not share them. But then there's also the additional impulse that you want to participate because of connection.
Right.
But when the feedback from that is the expectation that we are as animals in a capitalist system supposed to survive on that alone, it's hard not to feel like that's a kick in the nuts, basically, of like, well, this deserves money and your process doesn't, because your process is confusing to me, because your process involves a lot, sometimes having 2-hour conversations with friends and then going and sitting and thinking about it for 4 hours.
Right.
And how do you pay someone for that? Because really when someone is purchasing artwork or purchasing the artifact of an artwork, of an artistic creation, what they are saying is that I'm supporting all of the extra stuff that has to go into that.
Right.
Even though I may not understand the mystery of it, because it's unique to every person. I mean, like, your process is completely different than mine.
Oh, yeah.
And
totally. Mine's better. Shh, don't tell Ellen Jerry that.
I can hear you.
Oh, dang it.
It's almost like a voice near my ears.
No, my process is just faster than hers. Well, it is.
It is faster. I don't know if that makes it better. It's different.
Well, it's different.
It's
different.
Very different.
It's different. Yeah.
And when you don't have, and this is part of the thing that relates to me in my mind about the fame part of it, is that I'm assuming that a famous person would have, at the minimum, a majority of social validation for the thing that they're doing.
Right.
Whereas they may not, I mean, I don't know the economy of it, but they may not get the monetary value of it, but at least they're getting that adulation that can feel like I am doing something right because I'm reaching a million people. Whereas when you are not famous and you are working and you're just working and I mean, that's never been my goal. I don't think it's your goal either. Mm-hmm. But the idea being that the adulation comes from friends, from your family, from your longtime fans who love you no matter what and want you to do well and believe in you and have showed their adulation and also have supported you monetarily. It's sort of like, well, yeah, I know you know it, but why isn't there this wider recognition of something? Right. And yeah, that's a little bit egotistical, but I don't give a shit.
I don't know if that's egotistical enough. Egotistical enough.
Enough. I need to push it further.
No, that's not egotistical. That's, you want to reach a wider audience because, what you're saying in your songs or what you're producing has value and is, it's part of humanity. It's part of like reaching or talking to humanity. It's, there's it, and I think there is self-validation that happens when that goes beyond just your friends, just the circle that's around you.
Yeah, to hear it from a stranger who
yeah,
who you have no personal connection to at all say, hey, I saw this 3 years ago and it stuck with me. And
yeah, like if they came to your show and they're like, you should smile more.
Why isn't your show funnier? I think you would be so much prettier on stage, Ellen Cherry, if you talked more about how much women love laughing and enjoying themselves, because really women do.
Yeah, you should have a quirky dance set part of your show. For those people who are on, there's a little inside joke going on there. Ellen Cherry, I don't really think I should tell the story, but I'm just saying that you were approached by someone after one of your shows, and he wanted to give you some advice. What was that? I can't remember.
His suggestion was, I had played a theater piece that I've written about women and the inner lives of women, and it is filtered through my diary and through my songs, and it features large-scale projected portraiture by Liz Downing, and I've worked really hard on it. But his comment was that he knew women really well, and then he knew that they love to laugh, and why wasn't there more about how much women love to laugh in my program? And my first thought was, and I think I told you this, that I felt like I had just been told to smile more, that I would be pretty. I would be pretty if I would just smile more.
She's always frowning.
I would be prettier if I wasn't so serious.
Yep.
And
I'm calling her Sour Cherry from now on.
It was one of those things where you're just like, wow, this little micro thing just piled on a big old pile of sticks, and the sticks are about to fall down. I was just, anyway.
Yep.
But back to your essay.
Yes, my essay.
Because it was so full of information and interesting ideas that I feel like I only touched on one of them, which was the sensuousness of experiencing the artifact. But there was a lot more in there.
Well, before we, because we're kind of winding down on mine, but the one thing that I felt that I didn't spend a lot of time on with my essay was, the idea of fame and success. And part of that is there is a certain disposability of celebrity now. Just like kind of music kind of comes and goes, it seems. And maybe it's because I've gotten older and I don't pay attention as much to like what the, super cool new hot thing is. And I'm like, they mention names like guest starring on tonight or what. I'm like, who is that? I don't know who that is. Why would I? And I hate to say it, but they all look the same to me. So I'm like, what? They have that same stupid haircut, or it's some dude with a six pack or what. I don't.
A couple of years ago, I really felt like every single new band was wearing vests and holding banjos and had mustaches, and I thought,
that is the worst.
This is why I'm not famous, because I don't have a mustache yet. I'm not carrying my banjo, and I'm not wearing a vest. And I was like, wow, like 5 of these bands, all the pictures are of dudes, vests, banjos, mustaches. And I thought that's the marketing mold. And that disposability is something to be actively rejected, I think. And I think you and I are kicking ass at actively rejecting any attempt at marketing us into a mold.
I don't want to be marketed at all. I want to be, I don't want to be a flash in the pan. I want to be the pan. All crusted up and, jeez.
Slightly rusty.
Yeah.
We're talking about a cast iron skillet here, right?
Yeah, falling apart. Seasoned well with a lot of bacon fat. Yep. That's me. So, well,
no, we should talk about the disposability of it, because I feel like that is, before we even started talking during the podcast, we were talking about, well, no, we did talk about the ridiculousness. Yeah. That part of creating artifacts that are now no longer this physical thing you can hold or hand to somebody. It's very strange. Oh, on my show on Saturday in New York, the people that came, I had brought all these CDs and no one had bought any on Thursday. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to give the CDs away that accompany this program to every audience member as a thank you for coming. And I even made a joke at the top of the show as I was handing them out. I was just like, hey, do you guys remember this? It's called a compact disc, and you can play it in your car. I know you guys live in New York, and maybe some of you don't have cars. And one guy was just like, I still have a CD player. And I was like, yay, good for you. You can play my compact disc in your...
Well, I find that odd that people don't have CD players anymore.
Well, they're not in computers. Like the Mac computers don't have them anymore.
Yeah, and Sony discontinued making laser drives, so they don't even actually make those anymore. But the only reason I bought that Mac was because it had a disk drive, because I still use disks. I think they're more reliable to save stuff on, and it's like, I don't trust the cloud, and not because I'm a conspiracy theorist, although I am. I just, there's this whole idea, I guess, like, yeah, compact disc is like, it's a good, like, something that's reliable.
And also, I feel like there's to me, when someone hands me a disc, I feel more obligated to listen to it than if somebody would send me a track.
Yeah.
Or even something that I did even this morning is that the only way I have these audio essays for my subscription service, which is available to you on Bandcamp, is if I send out a download code to somebody who I want to listen to it. But I have to say, go to this website, enter this code.
Right.
They have to download. They have to unzip it.
Maybe that's the new ritual. I remember when I put in that download code. You know what? I remember the sensuousness of as I unzipped the file.
Oh, Grim.
I extracted the hell out of it.
Slowly,
I downloaded. 50 shades of meh.
of the silence of like listening and then watching. All tasks are completed. Anyway, would you like to listen to the 2,700-minute essay that I wrote?
Yes,
and there's a word that we both used in our essays that I think I find fancy. Fancy and fascinating.
Oh, proportionate?
Nope.
Oh, let me guess. A specific word. The?
We did. Oh my God, you guessed it.
What? All right, hold on a second here. Here we go. This is Ellen Cherry's part 1 of a 7-part series. You'll be able to download all 7 parts in crisp, high definition 3D audio, 5.1 surround sound off of her Bandcamp page.
To your tiny iPhone earbuds.
Yeah, your dollar store earbuds. Good luck.
I have been down recently because of a bad cold, which led to about 6 to 8 days of a pretty serious resurgence of depression, right in the middle of a 4-week infirmity. In my therapist's office last week, I said, how do I know if I'm having a break with reality when nothing feels real right now? The sickness had dulled my sense of taste, my vision appeared foggy, and my eyes were tired. Every conversation sounded as though I was listening through sound-canceling headphones. I couldn't smell anything, and even my skin was binary, either completely numb or overly sensitive. 3 mornings in a row, I cracked not one, but both eggs I intended to scramble for breakfast on the edge of a bowl and then promptly dumped the yolks and whites into the sink basin. This baffled me for lengthy moments. I stood and stared at what I had done, utterly perplexed about what should happen next. The generalized confusion I felt real, but the rest of it, the news, goings-on in the lives of my friends, my work, it was so dreamlike. The result was a lot of time to sit on the couch and browse the internet and watch TV shows, but with very little attention span. I spent over a week dosing myself with NyQuil to sleep, having deep hallucinations, and then waking in America, which seems like a fever dream in its own way. I spent a lot of mornings in a prayer-like state, begging for the mental equivalent of that thunder shirt they use for dogs to calm their anxiety. I'm feeling better now, but it's important to mention this experience because right before I got sick, I had seen Blade Runner 2049. I just happened to also be rereading Philip K. Dick's book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Netflix bots suggested that I watch Tron, so I did, and it made me ruminate about playing DOS-based computer games in the 1980s and the first time I used email at college. I thought about when I started being a Netflix subscriber a few years ago and how fun it was to wait for the DVDs to arrive in the mail. It was so convenient. I could manage a list of titles I wanted to see and they would arrive in order rather than trying to remember at the video store. I recall the swift transition of opting into a monthly subscription service that involved streaming as well as DVDs and then ultimately abandoning the DVDs for just the streaming platform. The video store was gone at this point, and this all seemed to happen so quickly. Even then, I began to suspect that the bewildering pace of technological change was intentional, meant primarily to confuse and distract me. It's not the head cold. It does seem unreal to me how much I am asked to adapt on almost a daily basis if I want to retain my relevance among my peers or my colleagues or achieve even momentary attention for the work that I do. What does seem real is how insidious the motive is. I know that my participation in the digital world, the online world, the internet, is ultimately serving up a feast for craven capitalist machinators. The cold seemed to be lasting, so after Tron, I started watching an HBO series called Westworld, based on the 70s movie by Michael Crichton. A story about engineers and philosophers and capitalists attempting to reach technological singularity with beautiful machines who harbor a deeply buried code that might actually be bicameralism or the engineered origin of consciousness. A simplistic summary, yes, but at least I was awake for most of it at this point. The slogan of the park in Westworld was, "Live without limits." I find that phrase to be incredibly stressful, living without limits. Having had now around 20 years working as an artist and musician during this digital age, the limitlessness of digital recording itself, the seemingly endless platforms for consumption of music, the multiple ways in which I find myself able to and somewhat required to promote my projects and work and performances, and the boundless amount of content that I could personally provide for social media should I choose to dedicate all my waking hours to it. There's no end to it. There's no boundary I can reach where I have done all the things that I should have to sing out and to participate, to let people know, to try to grab attention. But obviously, there is a limit to my time and energy. I think I tend to view these boundless outlets as a gaping maw of impossibility, but I'm sure there are no limits to the criticism I will now receive for being so negative about it. What is the point of all this remembering of how things used to be while I'm sitting here made idle by a biological, not technological problem, this temporary illness? I think I am remembering because it felt like there were some limits in the time before, and the limits felt good to me. They were an emotional and mental thundershirt that pressed in and felt comforting enough to help me rest, but also restrictive enough to keep pushing and working. Those limits reassured me that there was some end to be reached, and that the end would provide, at the very most, a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment, and at the very least, a stopping point. Where is the end of the park? Where is the digital fence? I am okay to live with limits, really. I am. P.S. If you're feeling unwell with a cold, I highly recommend that you enter a world that is so unreal that it ricochets between the unreal and the surreal. If you have the time, the means, and the will to get through it, at least for a few episodes, open the door to a show called Barbie, Life in the Dream House, available to you on Netflix, a distraction service which is in no way affiliated with this podcast.
Yeah, you and this Barbie dream doll house.
Get the title correct, please. It's Barbie, Life in the Dream House.
Life in the Dream House, yes, of course. Wow,
I'm in deep. I'm in pretty deep.
You are in very deep, and not only that, but yeah, your background music was like, I was on edge immediately. Like,
what was that?
that was one of the cats, I guess. I hope.
Oh yeah, it was Mig. He's watching TV. Cat TV.
Cat TV. It's always on. So we both used the word binary.
Yes.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. It's a good word.
It is a great word.
I just want to jump right to, what is it? Live your life with no limits.
Live without limits.
Live without limits. What a bunch of bullshit that is. My goodness. I mean, not in your essay. It's bullshit, Ellen Cherry. Let me tell you something. You better start smiling more and writing better essays. No, your essays are great, but no, that whole idea of like living without limits. I mean, in the Westworld context, it's all about feeding the inner id and allowing that to explore like the sex and violence that our modern or our contemporary society or how our culture kind of restricts those things, or whatever acceptable behavior is. But then you start thinking about like that whole, that idea that, we should, the sky's the limit and we should be bounding through all this other stuff. It's like, oh man, we need limits. Good God, have mercy. because if we don't have limits, then how do you know where the line is of success or even failure?
And even in the context of that show, like the idea of bounding in the id
Right.
means that your brain has the ability to go into the superego. And like that is a valuable thing, which is what some of what you and I and every other creative person is trying to do, which is in some ways, I think the stuff that we enjoy is pushing you from the base level, like skipping the ego and jumping from like tamping down your id enough so that you can actually enter the superego, which is full of compassion and thought and empathy and real beauty. And yeah, the stuff in that show definitely, I mean, I enjoyed it a lot. Like I didn't enjoy it, but I enjoyed the thinking that it caused for me. And
Yeah,
but I was also super high on NyQuil, so.
yeah, it was. Yeah, I think that show takes. Just to talk about the show for a second, it takes. I think like it might be like 5 episodes before it kind of calms down from all the ultra violence and ultra sex things, and then it kind of settles into this like, oh, wait a minute, now I got to think.
Yeah.
I got to think about exactly what's going on, and then some of the surprises and storytelling things that they use. It's like really, you're not watching it anymore to see the action. You're then watching it to be like, oh, no, wait a minute, this means something.
And I was watching it probably from about that episode through to the end where I was starting to think like, how do the machines even know who is talking to them?
Right.
And that idea of, okay, so if we're talking about reality, at the beginning of the essay when I said, I don't sometimes feel like am I having a break with reality?
Right.
Is that the same question as like, if I'm able to ask myself if I'm having a break with reality, then obviously I'm not, because I'm able to question it. Otherwise I wouldn't.
Right.
But the machines in there who are, and the engineers who are trying to, engineer their consciousness, that's part of the idea is like, well, who's actually talking to you? Like who's actually directing the ship of your brain?
Right.
And there's that, I don't know. Anyway.
Well, but those are all like really good ideas. Like they're all points that we have to consider. And if we think about going back to the idea of analog versus digital, that question then becomes, not just analog in terms of, because analog is like, I consider to be the long form, physical, indelible, and the digital is the quick and short, that kind of like the shortcut to things, and which one lasts with us and which one's an easier signal path to follow. And the digital age is all about the decoding, but also it seems like deception as well. Like analog was never about deceiving us; it's about reproduction, and then the purpose of reproduction was to listen or to experience. Whereas the digital seems like it's camouflage. It's something different than what it is. I don't know. I might not be making sense at this point.
No, that makes sense. And when you said that, I realized like, I didn't actually, in my essay, try to address directly what does it have to do with the subject matter of digital versus analog. I was
Right.
just thinking about how scary the limitlessness of digital. Every time when I think about entering the digital world, it
Right.
does seem like I'm never going to reach the end of that. There's
Right.
no guideline for that. And with the analog, the restrictions of not necessarily recording, but like life before anything that you do outside of the digital realm, there are these limitations of, well, your body can only move that fast, or
Right,
you
right.
like you have to eat at certain points and sleep and be well. And our brains, I'm assuming I am not an android, that my brain
Yeah.
only has a certain amount of processing power because of its animal nature, because it has to spend energy on all of these other things, like keeping
Right.
my organs running. Whereas if I was an android, I would have, a computer processing power that would just be dependent on, I guess, the production of electricity, and I don't know, like the future
Right.
of AI that would be a renewable resource that they would somehow power themselves with sunlight or
Coal.
probably
Coal fire androids.
But this like what you're saying, I think, what I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I hear you saying is that for you, the artifact is the thing that's missing, the sensuous experience from
Right.
digital. And for me, it was like this idea of the scary boundlessness that it feels better to have something to push against,
Right.
or to at least meet and be finished.
Because sound is made by pushing air, and that's, I think, a lot of ways the things that we see in terms of audiences kind of diminishing over the years is because they're staying at home with their digital lives, and so their digital portal then is to turn on Facebook Live, and like, well, I watched a little bit of your show on Facebook Live. Yeah, it would have been great if you were actually there.
Yeah.
Because I didn't. I mean, if I want to perform for Facebook Live, I'll just turn the camera on in my house and never leave my house.
Yeah.
Which is horrifying. I mean, I think it's truly, truly horrifying. There was something that you just said also, which I thought was reminded me of. There's this commercial. I guess it was an internet commercial or a cable, like Comcast commercial or whatever, and it has this kind of dad bod guy who's sitting at his house in front of a desktop computer, and he's clicking through the internet or whatever. And then, like, the rest of his family is watching TV or something. It's, loveless, hapless kind of marriage type of thing, kind of stereotype. And he's clicking through, and suddenly this like alert screen comes up or alert dialogue box comes up on his screen and says, beep, congratulations, you have reached the end of the internet. And he's like, oh. And he stands up and he walks out and he goes, I finished it. And his wife says, finished what? He goes, the internet. And then you have this moment of like, well, what's there to do? And I think at that point it's like, well, now we have, infinite more internet or whatever.
Don't worry.
Don't worry.
Don't worry, humans.
There's plenty of content out there for you. But it's like, we have to have limits. Like I've been doing this thing. I told you about it last week. Like I've been purposely giving myself 8 hours of sleep every night.
Yeah.
And creating limits, like saying like, I am going to go to bed and I'm going to get up at this particular time. And I am blessed with being able to go to sleep. I can fall asleep very quickly.
God has blessed you with that ability.
Yeah, well, it's my super ability. It's my superhuman, Superman, superhero feature. I could have had laser eyes, but I chose wisely with being able to sleep like that.
Good for you.
Yeah, I don't regret it. But those limits have really helped me to be rested and healthy, but all this other. But I'm also like I write better, I think better when I impose that limit. And we live in a world now where it's just this whole idea of like, well, you might miss something, so your feed is going to be crammed up with stuff in Facebook, and you can DVR everything, and you can which I totally convenient, and I'm yeah, that's pretty cool, but I think there's a price that we're paying for that in the digital age.
Yeah.
And I think celebrities are feeling that too, because they're, once we get back to the disposability of fame and all that other stuff, it's like, well, what does it matter? I mean, how do we kind of compromise or negotiate the digital life, the idea of what digital life is?
Yes. So the idea of making something that matters.
Right.
And okay, so if we're going on the premise that life itself is meaningless,
right? I like where we're going.
If we start with the idea that life,
all is lost. Yes.
Not all is lost, but life is meaningless.
Right. There's no meaning to life.
There's no meaning.
Then we should just kill ourselves.
No.
Okay.
What I'm saying is we have whatever computer game we're playing, whatever thing that we're in, whatever atomic level, universal, Big Bang expansion into this collection of atoms. Mm-hmm. We have the exciting, thrilling adventure of like creating meaning, which is kind of fun. It's like being a playwright, like you are a storyteller. And that's why, of course, you and I are in the storytelling business. Mm-hmm. We're in the story consuming business. Both of us love stories. We love words. We love writing. We love telling. We love singing it. It's a long human tradition of communication and connection. And that assigns meaning to our lives. But if we are fighting an even bigger uphill battle against disposableness, because even the things that feel... It's so strange. It's really strange. I can't even imagine trying to navigate this at any younger age than I am now. I cannot imagine being 20 years and trying to...
Well, it would probably be easier because there's nothing to hold on to. So
you wouldn't have any of the sadness and nostalgia about the past.
Right. Well, and there's like, isn't this the idea that, I think it was it Aristotle and Plato, or These guys had an argument about like as oral tradition came to an end and they started writing things down. It was like, ugh, writing things down. How will you ever know what's? I mean, my goodness, you're just gonna forget everything.
Yeah.
And it was like that technology of paper and pencil was like a huge deal. And so I can see all these like oral tradition guys like, you kids and your papyrus, damn it, and
Something has been lost. Life is meaningless.
right. That's why Socrates really killed himself.
Wait, he killed himself?
Well, yeah, he drank hemlock, didn't he?
I don't know.
Wasn't that Socrates?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Socrates. I could be wrong.
Someone will correct us.
No one's going to correct us. Has anyone actually even listened to this podcast? We got 100 listens. I think it's really funny. Is like we're too afraid to look at our YouTube page to see how many people have viewed.
But part of that is because neither of us have really done promoting of it.
No, we have.
So what are we doing here, Grim?
It's meaningless once again.
I want to promote it.
Okay, well,
I do.
All right, well, let's look at the budget. $0 in the budget. Well, actually, no, it was like we had $180 in the budget for the website.
Did we?
I think. Well, it was. How much did we pay for it?
It was like $100.
$100. So yeah, we're both 50. We're in the red right now. $50 each. We got to generate some cash somehow from this. So. And we're woefully prepared. Oh, we're really cooking up the time too, which is pretty cool. Yeah,
that's good.
That's fine. So we're gonna take a short break
and figure out the thing that we think should be famous for this podcast.
Right. But we'll be right back. So you guys won't even know that we're gone because there's not like some sort of advertisement we're gonna put in here. I'm just gonna hit pause.
This
for a second.
podcast is not sponsored by Netflix.
That's right.
But it could be.
It could be Netflix if you're listening. We're back.
Okay.
We've had a little discussion.
We did have a discussion.
We did. And what are we going to listen to, Ellen Cherry? I forgot already.
We are going to listen to Dolly Varden, and the song is Done.
Okay. Dolly
Varden is a Chicago band, and they absolutely are famous. They are famous. Like, this is a misnomer to have on a Why Aren't You Famous podcast, because they actually are famous, and they've been a band for 25 years in Chicago, and they're amazing.
Never heard of
them. But we hope you enjoy it. Here, give a listen to Dolly Varden and Done.
Even from the very start, things were never right. But no one could blame us for trying. In a dull computer's glow, you muddled through the night, while the world we knew was busy dying. There is a part of me that holds on to hope, and even though I know I should have given up on you a long time ago. A long, long time ago. I know. Across a spinning record where the frequency was wrong, into the grimy bucket of the business, while shallow men sang praises for emptiness in song, you provided for a common distance. There is a part of me that holds on to hope, even though I know. I should have given up on you a long time ago. Now spring has hit the garden, but a chill hangs in the air. I see myself and I am disgusted. But in my head and in my heart, a burning is still there to make up for all the time I wasted. There is a part of me that holds on to hope, even though I know I should have given up on you a long time ago. A long, long time ago. I know. A long, long time ago. I know. A long, long time ago. I know.
Okay, a lot going on with that tune.
Right?
I know.
I know.
What a great repetition of like, double entendre and like, the whole. I'm sorry, I'm petting my cat.
You look like an evil villain. Focus on the song, Grim.
I expect you to die, eventually.
Probably will one
Yeah,
day.
well,
Hopefully
maybe.
not soon.
Yeah, that would be a bummer. I am like an evil character. I'm sorry. No, it was definitely a really cool song. I really like the production of it. I like the, lyrically, there's like, my God, how do you unpack all that?
Yeah, there's a lot because he talks about like the glowing computer screen and like having a conversation, this image of a spinning record, and also the idea that there was somebody the character of the song is talking to somebody about, connecting to somebody despite this distance, and those are some of the themes we've touched on with digital world
Today,
stuff. Yeah,
yes.
with today, with touching.
Yes, with touching.
And now you're touching your cat.
I am touching my cat. This guy.
Not a metaphor.
It's a literal thing. Let's see if we can get his purring on tape.
Listeners, can you hear Mig purring? Anyway, back to Dolly Varden
Well,
and their song.
We can't hear him purring with you
Sorry.
yapping all over it. Jeez. I'm just kidding. You're not yapping. Mig's just catnapping.
He's just catnapping. No, I've always loved that song, and especially today, I was sitting here as we were re-listening to it. I've heard that song hundreds of times, and there have been a couple of songs that have brought me through the dark time that I was having a couple weeks ago when I wrote that essay. That is so valuable to me, and I've bought the music that I've listened to, and I have valued it, but and I hope that person has benefited from that in a way because of the benefit that I've gotten from it. And to me, I feel like, I know that I want to assume that most people are trying to do their best in that.
Right.
And it is an uphill battle for consumers and for content creators of how to, I think there's a lot of people who are wondering about how to support creative people. And it's hard for them too, because they think they're doing the right thing. You know?
Right. Yeah, I downloaded the song and then I gave it to my friend. That's good, right? Well, yeah, it's good. I mean, it's better than nothing, I suppose. But the thing that I always find is like when a lot of the music I get, I buy stuff off of Bandcamp and I'll buy things at shows. But also, it's that you do a little disc swap or whatever when you're playing shows with people, and you're giving away what you have and you're getting something from somebody in return, and so there's this kind of barter type of thing that happens with it as well, which I think is completely fair. And I also like to support people, and I don't know if it really means anything coming from me, but if I'm listening to somebody's song, I'm like, oh, that's a really good line, and then I'll send them a text. I'm like, that line's really great.
Yeah.
In case you didn't know it, wow, that's like some really cool stuff. And you just try to be supportive that way too, I think.
Yeah.
It goes a long way.
And speaking of people who have given my life meaning and have also not quit, Steve Dawson
Yeah.
and Diane Christensen and Mark Boletto, and I'm totally spacing. Oh, please forgive me, Dolly Varden, on the other two band members'
Oh
names.
man.
You can go to dollyvarden.com
I
and
hope his
learn,
name's Donnie.
learn all about them.
Yes.
And they have multiple records, and that song is just the tip of the iceberg that you will if you explore their music, it's pretty incredible. And people in Chicago and beyond Chicago already know that, and hopefully this reaches some people who haven't heard of Dolly Varden before.
Yeah, you should totally check them out. I opened for them, didn't I?
Surely you did. You did. That's how I met Dolly
That's how you met
Varden.
them. Yeah.
But that was Steve on his solo tour.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Let's reminisce. It was at the Mojo Room on Blair Road in Baltimore, Maryland.
hey, yeah. Well,
Blair-
you imagine, owned by Andy Bob of
Right.
Miracle Bra and Love Nut.
So I came to the show to see Andrew Grimm, and he was opening for a guy named Steve Dawson, and I was the audience.
I think it was actually Dolly Varden.
No, it was his Sweet as the Anchor album.
Oh, okay.
So he would consider that a solo tour, his like solo album.
Oh, I seem to remember him having a whole bunch of people.
He had the band with him.
Yeah.
Well, so he had a band with him, but they weren't touring as Dolly Varden.
Well, I am not the president of the fan club, the Maryland chapter.
Yes,
as
I
you are.
am.
Jeez.
So anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, what's our next episode about?
I don't even know.
We have to look.
We have to look. Well, before we do that, though, we have a new feature that we can do now, which is, and I think we're way over an hour at this point.
Oh my God.
on the podcast, but it's so cool. We can add a feature, listener mail.
Yes, we did have a listener mail.
We had listener mail. This comes from somebody that we won't, I don't want to disclose who this person is, so we'll just call this person Seth B. Wrote in, and here's his email. It's a really long email, so maybe I should. No, I'm going to read the whole thing.
No, don't read the whole thing. We're already over an
Okay.
hour.
All right.
Maybe we should
Jeez.
save that for the next one.
Well, oh no, he said, I will suggest one topic for future podcasts.
Okay.
You guys should list and discuss your examples of good fame or worthiness, as Grima Z put it. I'm thinking of musicians as an obvious first step. One example that comes to mind is James McMurtry,
Yeah.
who has had steady work, as you say, Kristen. Discussing other artists would be interesting too. For instance, who the hell would be considered the last great novelist? Seriously, who is that? And will there ever be another Hemingway type of celebrity writer again? Oh, I think the answer to that is never again will we have somebody like that.
That's something that we touched on, but we did not discuss in depth in this podcast, is the idea of the universal world musical moment.
Right.
That existed when there were the gatekeepers of record labels and radio stations. And now that those gatekeepers have been removed, and that the idea of democratically experiencing artwork is totally shifted now to marketing, how good at marketing you are. The idea of having a musical moment as the world,
Right.
like somebody has a hit song, is very low. And it makes me think about something I did want to mention earlier, that the last time that I felt that actually happened was when Random Access Memory from Daft Punk came out a couple of years ago. And there was that feeling of like, this album hit a lot of different genres, dance, electronica, rock and roll, hip hop, songwriting. It was like, it had all these different expressions in the album itself. It was obviously also mastered for people to listen to on computers because it sounded amazing through the digital,
Right.
like in earbuds, it sounded great. And on computer speakers, it sounded pretty good. And that was fascinating to me. And I was just like, this may be the last time that we actually have that. And I wonder why that is, where people are actually across genres able to concentrate on one song. Lucky,
Well, I think the reason that we have that is because as with the digital age and all this other stuff, it's all been about, you take it back to the idea of the personal computer. Everything has been individualized, and we are compelled to be isolated and not sharing certain things. And as our access to material is created, we're no longer looking. I don't look at the Billboard chart to be like, oh, who's top 10? Nobody gives a shit
Yeah.
about any of that stuff anymore. It's really just about like, you make your own private playlist of what you like, and that's why the millennial generation, you ask them what they listen to, like, oh, everything, you know, and then you look at their playlists, and their playlists are
Everything.
it is a lot of different stuff. It's not everything,
Yeah.
but it's a lot of different stuff, and there's not one genre that anybody feels compelled to follow anymore. It's the mismatch of everything that is out there. Like all the potential could be everything.
Which is weird because the thing that we were talking about before with the boundlessness of digital exploration is that you should be able to dive down as deeply into your obsession as you like in a way that no one ever could before.
Correct. Yeah.
But I don't know. It's like it doesn't seem good for me the way that I dive into things. I'm not a generalist in some ways, but I do like the Renaissance idea of gathering a bunch of really beautiful, sensuous, amazing things,
Right.
and then drilling down into a few of them as my whim pushes me to.
Right.
I don't know where I'm going with that.
Well, but that brings us back to kind of Seth B's argument, or at least question, like, you know, who's going to be the next great novelist? It's like, well, there's never going to be another Tom Petty. There's never going to be another Bruce Springsteen. There's never going to be another U2. There's never going to be
Joni Mitchell.
I was getting to Joni Mitchell.
No, Nina Simone.
There's never going to be never again. And if anybody says, oh, well, Taylor Swift, well, no, I'm sorry. You need to listen to her new record, and you listen to NPR's. I heard NPR's review of what is it, Reputation or whatever the crap it is. And we watched that video. Did we watch that together?
We may have watched it because I was interested because I had met her co-writer on that song.
Yeah,
Jack Antonoff.
It's terrible. It's a terrible. A, it's a terrible song. B, it's a terrible video. And C, it's I don't care.
Well,
Like, I don't care about Taylor Swift and her fucking fame. I'm sorry that you know. I mean, like.
I felt a sadness with it because it's felt for me to watch. I looked at her as a person and thought, I am sad that already under the age of 30, she has so swiftly moved from something that, like a trajectory with her. There's not going to be anything. It doesn't seem to me that she's on a trajectory to reach a deep place, a deep emotional place. And I felt sad for her as a person because I thought that's weird, but maybe she's okay with it. Like,
I'm
so who
sure
cares?
well,
Yeah.
you know, as far as she's concerned, it's tailor made for her.
Yes. Oh, we both used her name.
What? Look at that. We're clever.
And I didn't like the song because the song to me, and the video, it wasn't for me, you know, like, and I wasn't pulling at anything deeply emotional, and it just seemed, it was really like, it's the first time I don't, full disclosure, I don't know her music very well, and I haven't been prompted to investigate further, so I'm not a great person to talk about like the depth that Taylor Swift might have in her catalog. I don't know that, but seeing that video, it really grossed me out.
It's more like depth
I was
rather
really,
than depth.
I was really grossed out.
You can dip your toe in it. But that's my cousin Donnie. He
No, we cannot introduce that character, Grim. We have to
dipped
stop.
a
It's
toe.
over an hour, and people have stopped listening at this point.
they have not. Okay.
So you have just heard an hour and 10 minutes of why Andrew Grimm and Ellen Cherry are not famous.
We're not famous, and let me tell you, we could go on for 4 more hours about that. I don't even know if we've actually even talked about our own bullshit. So, but it's fine.
Yeah, because where are we supposed to be going? We're supposed to be going at this point. What is our city? Wait, what is our city? Should talk to the mic.
Chicago? Did we already talk about Chicago?
We haven't talked about Chicago, but that is kind of a nice dovetail into. Let me look at the calendar.
Talking about Steve Dawson, and
Yeah, because at this point we are on.
this is our 6th podcast episode.
So we are looking at possibly Chicago, Illinois, or Lawrence, Kansas.
Right.
But since we played a Chicago band, let's talk about Chicago. We hope to go to Chicago
Yeah.
in March.
Yeah, we have. I have a super fan out there, Emily Yeager.
Great. She's going to
She's
get us a
totally
show.
Well, no, I think Steve Dawson should get us a show. It's because we're going to be there on a Saturday night.
Okay.
So why can't Steve Dawson get us a show?
I don't know. I need to call him.
You need to call Steve.
Yes.
And say, Steve, we need a show.
I'll work on it.
Steve, if you're listening to this, if you've made it through,
We love
this
you.
far, on the
Please.
podcast. Well, I played a show with him. I guess 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. He helped me set up a show.
Yeah.
And played with him, and super nice guy.
Yeah.
Great songs, great performer. Just effortless.
Yeah.
You know, when you see him play, and very encouraging. You know, and he's a really great guy.
He's amazing.
Yeah, I really like him a lot.
So, Grim,
Yes.
I think people should subscribe and get all of your back catalog. How can they do that?
Well, if you're going to do that, I would go to junestar.com. Oh, I'm sorry, junestar.bandcamp.com /subscribe.
Okay.
And, $5 a month. We got a new June Star record coming out in a couple of months. I'm posting,
What's the title of that one?
East on Green.
East on Green.
East on Green. And it's a cool record. It's being mastered right now as we speak. And, that's all I'm going to tell you right now.
Great.
Now, Ellen Cherry, I was curious because I was trying to buy some of your material and I couldn't find it on the internets.
What? What?
Where would I? Well, I was just going to ellencherry.com, but I whatever.
You didn't click on the store page?
I didn't. So wait, if I went to ellencherry.com and I clicked on store,
that takes you to ellencherry.bandcamp.com.
Oh, I thought that would take me to storage place.
No.
So that takes me to ellencherry.bandcamp.com.
So maybe I should change the title of that page to buy.
To buy, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, and I was trying to purchase an Ellen Cherry, but
you can't. There's only one me, and I can't be bought, motherfucker.
Wow, why you gotta talk like that? That's not nice. So anyhow, but we can subscribe.
You can go to the when you go to the Bandcamp page, the first page is the subscription page.
Oh, very cool.
And I'm currently producing exclusive content for subscribers that has to do with these audio essays surrounding this terrible car wreck that I was in.
Oh.
So it's super fun. And it'll make you laugh. It's a laugh riot. Because we all know that women love to laugh.
They do. And you know what? She's smiling, ladies and gentlemen. She's actually smiling. Man, I tell you what, she is so pretty when she smiles.
So much prettier.
Man, I tell you. It makes me want to go buy some of her records. So, all right. Well, Ellen Cherry, until next time.
Until next time.
All right.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.